Let's talk about the Championship and the promotion fight that's happening down there. Last season was always seen as potentially the best title fight we've seen in modern Championship history, with 3 or 4 teams going right to the death fighting for promotion spots. Between Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton and Leeds United, one of them had to miss out at least, or potentially 2, and of course one did miss out in the end, being Leeds United. And it does make you think on what would happen if Leeds went up instead of Southampton, knowing what we now know with how poor Southampton are this year. Now, usually a common trend that if a team loses in the playoffs, so in the playoff final, many of the players get took away and they seem to go down in levels. Well, Leeds, despite losing the likes of a Cristiano Somerville, Jorginho Rota, Glenn Kamara, they lost some key players. However, the issue is that the Championship last year, in my opinion, was much better than what we're seeing this year. Let's take a look at the league table right now. As you can see, Leeds are top with Sheffield United second place, Burnley 3rd, Sunderland 4th, and then a massive gulf. You might as well create another entire league between the top 4 and the rest of the pack, with, as of right now, as of today, 15th of February, 14 points separating 4th place Sunderland and 5th place Blackburn. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm a Burnley fan, and of course Blackburn are our main rivals, but how Blackburn, with their current squad, are 5th in the table, for me indicates how poor this league really is. Blackburn fans will shout at me for saying that. However, I've spoken to Blackburn fans and they also believe the same thing. Surprisingly, Bristol City is not 11th for once, they're 7th. Give it a month. I have just done a video on Luton Town, a team that of course was in the Premier League last year, now being rock bottom of the Championship, conceding the 2nd most goals in the entire division. There are some exciting stories in the Championship right now that may be led to another day. The feeling of an inevitable uprising at Coventry City seems like it is maybe necessary for a video, and the seeming stagnation and repeated failures right now at Middlesbrough, Norwich City and Watford, teams that people would expect to be in that fight, just always failing time again, with sudden false dawns coming on them when they have a few good results, always leads to disastrous poor form shortly afterwards. And don't get me started on Stoke City, who despite no matter who they sign or who they bring in, they are always pathetic and around 18th, 19th. So comment down below your thoughts on the promotion race and who do you think will get the top 2. Like, subscribe, and for any print regarding your club and Championship, Vizeh Designs, use code Vizeh for 15% off all items, all made by myself. Let's talk about the top 4 race here and what you need to know about it. Now, what I love about this promotion race is that every single team is so different to one another in their own way. Now, of course, for clarity, I'm a Burnley fan, so of course I have my own tints of bias here. But it also means because I'm a Burnley fan, I'm involved in the race. I've watched a lot of each team, so I feel like I have a pretty good knowledge on the strength and weaknesses of each lineup here. Let's go into what is seen as the most exciting team of the lot, and that is Sunderland. If you was to ask any neutral fan, or really any fan in the country that's not from Newcastle, who would you want to go up this year from Championship, it would be Sunderland. I think everyone would love the story of Sunderland. An established club in Premier League, was always seen as a big club. Sunderland going down into League One and spending quite a lot of years down in the lower divisions. Now with the possibility of, after failing in the playoffs not too long ago, Sunderland have been seen as somewhat of a joke due to I guess maybe their own doing, due to the Netflix documentary they did that a lot of people was watching their fans cry on Netflix. They've made some smart decisions in the back room in terms of their decisions on transfers, and they've brought in a lot of players overseas, some young players, which they inevitably will take some chances on and to develop into a pretty exciting young team. The average player age in the entire squad is 22.9 years of age, which makes it by far one of the youngest teams in the entire division. They're an exciting team because they got some good young players that can get you off your feet, Mundo being one of them, Isidore being one of them, Mayenda, and of course the massive transfer in the window, of course Enzo Lefi from Roma on loan, which seems like a massive coup for them. Adding the elements of a Joby Bellingham as well to add a lot more tension in terms of how his development will come. It makes him a very exciting team, and for any neutral, realistically, anyone would want someone to go up. Their manager in Lebris seems to be a very tactical manager where he is not focused on just one style of play. Many times this year he appears to have adapted to suit different parts of the year when they've not got certain players or against different opposition. The one negative I would find with Sunderland, because they are such a young team for the most part, I do find that consistency would be their main issue, and that sometimes it can completely blow a team away and have a fantastic performance, and sometimes it may just not work in that simple know-how to get a 1-0 result when they need it, or to get a 1 goal. That would be the main difference between them not being in top 2 and just being in the playoff spots. If you were to ask me how do I see Sunderland this year, I personally think they would not make it in the top 2 just because of the consistency element alone. Now let's go to the other side of it, which is of course 3rd place Burnley. And if you were to say who's probably the most boring team out of the top 4 to potentially go up, I think most people say either Sheffield United or Burnley. And I guess you may say in this case it's probably going to be Burnley. Burnley right now have a defensive record which is unforeseen, not just in Championship history, but at this current moment, English football history. 9 goals conceded in 32 games. Yes, that is currently on course to be better than Chelsea's 15 goals conceded in the entire season, but of course that was in the Premier League and not in the Championship. Not only that, but right now Burnley hasn't conceded a single goal in the last 10 games. Burnley have not conceded 2 goals or more in a single game the entirety of the league season. Unless there is a massive collapse, every defensive record in Championship history will be broken this year by Burnley. The main issue for Burnley is on the other end of the pitch, and that is attacking, obviously. Burnley, despite being, of course, so defensively resolute, it leads to a lot of boring games. By that I mean, as a Burnley fan, I've gone through nearly 10 0-0 draws this season. Yeah. You can make that 11 0-0 draws this season now. Many of those 0-0 draws actually being at home against teams that, again, you'd expect to beat. Similar to the same mistake that Sunderland are having, where it's inconsistency with Sunderland, I believe. For Burnley, it's just simply a lack of a conviction in their play and a lack of taking any risk. Burnley do have players, better players, I believe, than Sunderland, but I believe they are being held back in many aspects to actually go for a game because they are fearful of being vulnerable, being hit on the break, or being vulnerable at the back. Therefore, it leads to being extra cautious and just leading to a lot of 0-0s all the time, where, well, if you can't win, make sure you don't lose. The term defense wins championships is a term that you hear quite a lot, and that is true in many aspects here. However, Burnley's goals scored tally this year is really inflated by just 3 games, where we beat Cardiff 5-0 and Luton 4-1 in the first 2 games of the year. To take out just the first 2 games, we had players that are no longer here. That means we've scored 30 goals in 30 games, which is a goal a game, which is really, really poor. Just to put into an aspect here, let's say we take those 2 games out, I just add 1 goal or 2 to it, so let's say it's 31 goals or 32 goals. That would put us nearly dead last in terms of goals scored across the entire Championship. Burnley's main weakness is really taking advantage of teams at home when they're up against a team that will expect us to sit deep. Burnley do struggle really to break teams down that's in a low block, especially at home, which away from home we are the best team in the division, but at home we struggle time and time again. Scoring goals will always be an issue, and again, that can be the difference between them being 2nd or 3rd for me. And then there's Sheffield United, which is a strange team to really judge this year, where when I've spoken to many Blades fans, they seem to be not too convinced on the team this year, where not really once this year there's been a real convincing victory. Maybe the win against Middlesbrough could be a moment they can kick on with, as they've got the game against Leeds coming up. Sheffield United really improved themselves in the January window, when they signed the likes of a Tom Cannon, a Brayton Diaz to really boost up their attack to bring in more goals. Rob Holding on loan, Shrewsbury on loan. They've really gone all out in this window to really make sure they go up this year, and I think they really have to. In terms of older teams, Sheffield United seems to be kind of in the middle in terms of pretty decent attack and a pretty decent defence, but not particularly amazing in one way or another. Ahmed Hodzic at the back, Cooper in goal, Gus Hamer and Vinicius Sosa also being in midfield as well. They've got some good experience there. And in terms of on the bench, they've got some players that can really make an impact as well. Where injuries kind of always cost Sheffield United, it seems like they've done well in the window to really add to that. And if you're asking me, I'd think it is between Sheffield United and Burnley for that 2nd place spot, which of course then leads to Leeds United. Leeds should get the job done this year, for me, rather comfortably. For me, they've got by far the best team in the division, and they've got by far the best attack, scoring almost double the amount of goals as Burnley as well. Smashed Cardiff 7-0 at home only a week or 2 ago gives you an example of what they can do to teams. As I was saying before, last year they lost the likes of Somerville and of course Jorginho Rutter, even Glenn Kamara, that were big parts of the team, and it felt like losing those players be a massive hit on them, but if anything, it's made them a bit more balanced and therefore less predictable to kind of mark out. Bringing in the likes of Solomon, that of course has that, you can tell the element of Premier League quality to him, and also a massive signing in Tanaka, which is a great replacement for Glenn Kamara. Brendan Anderson, that realistically is a player that should really not be in this division considering the money that was spent on him. However, he hasn't really shown that for quite some time now. Attacking wise, that's not a single concern for them. Right now it's just defensively. There's been many conversations about the goalkeeper Ilan Melia being just not ready and will always be seen as a liability. And to be honest, if let's say for example you would put Cooper or James Trafford in the same position at Leeds United, they would be probably gaining 5, 6, 7 more points than what they are on right now already. But I can't really give many negatives for Leeds. In terms of the performances of the team, they've been really top quality, and most times that they've dropped points due to an error at the back that typically leads to the goalkeeper. The example is Sunderland away or Hull City away. Leeds should win the league for me rather comfortably. I think it'd be them between Sheffield United and Burnley for the second place spot. Sheffield United they're good at both aspects in terms of attack and defence, where Burnley is by far better defence but can be prone to being cut out of the attack as well. Sunderland will be a dark horse here, and I think they will still be up there, but I think similar to Southampton of last year, I think towards the end of the year, I think consistency or injuries may be able to have them falling off near the end. That's just my own personal view. I'm obviously going to say I think Burnley be second just because I'm a Burnley fan, but realistically it's going to be a tough one between Sheffield United and Burnley for the second place spot. Leeds have 2 huge games coming up that can really make me look stupid in the next week or so. They've got Sunderland at home, and then they've got Sheffield United away the next week. Tell me down below your thoughts on the championship race. I'll see you guys next time for another video. Peace out.